What's up, everybody? Today we get to Trooper Yuri B's cross examination, at least the beginning of it. We get some more testimony on his direct to see exactly what the prosecutors wanted to get out of his testimony. We talk about the flipped camera. We talk about the Ring doorbell cameras. We talk about conversations had with Ms. Reed. We talk about what Yuri knew about the conflicts of interest with law enforcement in this case. All that and more. We'll get to your questions. Thanks for hanging with me. Please hit that like button if you guys have not already. Just a quick aside before we start. Anybody that's been here long enough knows how much I hate being late and how miserably annoying tech issues are. And we had both of those today. I did the update on my computer here, which is an Apple. I did the update on my phone. No issues. I did the update on my office computer for God knows what reason at 1 o'clock today, and everything stopped working. Camera, microphone, plug-in internet, everything. So we were trying to fix it for the last 30 minutes, and it wasn't working. So that's why I drove home. Luckily, I live close to the office. I apologize for wasting your time, having you sit here, wait for a video to start. I respect your time, and I appreciate you guys that get here on time and hang out with me for all this time talking about these cases and these trials. I have a couple calls this afternoon. I've pushed back one of them to give us a little bit more time to dig into this. We still have a little bit more than an hour, just barely. So we're going to get to absolutely as much of it as we possibly can. I know you guys aren't mad about it, and I appreciate it. And that's what makes you guys the best chat in YouTube ever, anywhere. And I appreciate it. I know how frustrating it is when people are late and waiting on people for seemingly no reason. So I want to throw that out there and start with that. But I appreciate you guys so much. We're going to get into direct examination started back up with the trooper that they may call instead of calling Trooper Proctor. I put out a short today to try to break down as well as I could what happens if the defense wants to call Proctor, but he wants to plead the fifth, all the kind of back and forth that can happen. So check out that short. But also there are reports that Alan Jackson said he's going to call Trooper Proctor. Then I see reports that say Alan Jackson says the Commonwealth's going to call Trooper Proctor. And if they do, it's interesting because they've set up and done so much background that makes you think they're not going to call him, that now they are going to call him. I don't know if it's some pressure the defense put on them, if they realize that the jury is going to have to hear from Proctor. Whatever the reason is, I honestly think it's the right call for the Commonwealth to put on Trooper Proctor, as bad as that sounds. And as much as I can't wait to watch his testimony, I think all the bad stuff's already come out. He's kind of like the boogeyman at this point. So maybe let him get up there and explain himself. Sure, it can crash and burn. And obviously, I don't know the ins and outs like these lawyers do on this case, but I think a lot of the bad stuff's already out there for Proctor. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But for now, we've got Yuri. And we've got some issues with his testimony. First, when they come back with direct, Lally has him kind of fix the mistake we talked about yesterday. Was it 7 drinks? Was it 8 drinks? Was it 9 drinks? And at the end of the day, he says 9 drinks consumed. And he also said he saw her consume them on the video. He didn't quite dig in like we talked about in the video last night, but he did have Yuri say he watched her consume 9. Parts of the Ring video were missing, like when Karen Reed showed Jen McCabe and Roberts the crack in the car, in the taillight of the car, I should say. So he confirmed that. And then he gets into some more of what they saw and found. So let's listen to that here.
We located Mr. O'Keefe's baseball hat. We located a drinking straw from a cocktail glass. We located items of plastic, colored plastic, and other shards of colored plastic at the location. All those items were located on the grass portion of the yard near the flagpole at 34 Fairview Road.
And your neighbor?
Yes.
I just basically want to play that part because a lot of people were asking, where's the hat? Where's the hat? Where's the hat? Well, the hat came into evidence today. They found the hat. So a lot of these things that some people were saying they didn't have or they couldn't find, they do have them. They did find them. When and where, the defense is still going to argue with, but they go through pictures. They publish the hat. They publish the more plastic pieces, the straw that was found on the street, not in the yard. So they do publish all that, but there are issues we're going to bring up and when the defense is crossing him. Then Lally tries to kind of gloss over how the officers ended up at Fairview multiple times over the next couple weeks and how they just kept finding stuff. Were they on official police business? How did that work? the way Lally explains it, he makes it seem like it's normal. I've never heard of anything happening like this on a case, but let's take a listen to how the trooper explains it.
To 34 Fairview Road on February 4th.
Having excavated those items on the 3rd, I directed the troopers in my office, who obviously reside in the communities around us, to make a point to travel by that location every day on the way to work and every day on the way home. The purpose of that was to see if anything else was to reveal itself as the snow naturally melts away and items could present themselves. So on the February 4th, as I am traveling to work, I diverted my typical route of travel to go by 34 Fairview Road. Just prior to my arrival, I received a call stating that there was 10 police representatives at the scene, and more items have been revealed due to the melting snow, and that I should come collect those items. I was down the street. I arrived and collected the item that presented itself.
And if you recall, that item that you collected on February 4th, was that located?
So he instructed his officers to divert or make sure on their drive home that they would just drive by Fairview Road and make sure that if anything else revealed itself to them with the melting snow over time, that they would just swing by and pick it up, as if that's how it's supposed to go. Right? That's not really how police work goes. That's not really how evidence gathering goes. And I expect the defense to dig into it a lot. They've dug into it some, but that to me was like, so it's as shady as it sounds, right? Sometimes they say stuff's going to come out sounding shady and it doesn't. From my perspective, there was definitely some shade thrown at the way these things were found 5 and 10 and 15 days after January 28th and 29th. But it turns out it's just as weird as it sounds. He instructed his subordinate officers to drive by their house on their way to and from work. It's like, if you thought you were going to find stuff, why don't you just set up a time to go there and gather the evidence?
On the lawn, on the street, or something else?
It was on the lawn.
Now, with reference to your collection of these items, either on February 3rd, February 4th, or on any sort of subsequent date, how were they collected, and what exactly did you do with them in reference to the seizing of the items and storage of the items?
Each item that was collected was placed in an evidence paper bag. The collection was done by utilizing latex gloves to prevent any transfer of evidence from fingerprints to DNA onto those items. Then those items were transported to our office, logged into the system, and stored in the evidence lockers at the office.
And each of those respective bags of items or evidence, they were sealed as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, turning your attention to February 10th of 2022, did you have occasion to go back to 34 Fairview Road on that day as well?
I did.
And what, if anything, did you observe, or what, if anything, did you seize on that particular day?
We seized more shards of glass and plastic.
And if you know, or if you recall, how many pieces did you seize on that particular day?
My memory is exhausted to that, but the exact numbers annotated in on the bags that the items were placed into.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you.
But Leah, at least he's saying they put on their gloves, they put it in evidence bags, they did it all officially, right? That's what he's trying to make it sound like. But if you're on duty and you're working this case and you go show up to look for more stuff, that's fine. If that's the plan and you do it and you document it. But to just like drive by randomly and, grab some stuff and throw it in evidence bags. I mean, I'm not saying that they planted stuff. I'm not saying, and again, this is people saying I'm playing dumb. It's just hard for me to believe that that's what happened. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't think it's been proven by any means in this case, but I'll tell you what, I don't trust this investigation. And whether they prove a cover-up or conspiracy, or whether they just highlight the fact that the Commonwealth's not proving this case, the defense wins either way. And right now, they are definitely making me think this does not sound right. This is not how it's supposed to go. Shelby said, guys, I made it into law school. Shelby, arguably that's the hardest part. So congratulations. Keep your head down and work hard. Randall said, Alan Jackson said to the reporter, yes, Proctor will be testifying for the state, or the state will be calling him. Not sure how he knows that fact, but it's what's said earlier today. So a lot of times judges will make, and we've seen it in cases, judges will make each side let the other side know who you're going to call so they can prepare for them, especially in a multi-week trial. We don't want to just prepare for all 70 witnesses. It's like, these 3 are coming tomorrow. Okay, I'll prepare for those 3, then the next 3. Obviously, we've prepared ahead of time, but you kind of lock in and really dig deep on those witnesses that are coming the next day.
Documents attached to look at that section and look up in your. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Sergeant, is your memory refreshed as to how many items or what the items were that you recovered on February 10th?
Yes, it is.
And what were those items and how many, sir?
There was 6 items of clear red and black plastic and 14 items of plastic and glass.
Now, in addition to the dates that you were present at 34 Fairview Road and recovered items, them being February 3rd, February 4th, and February 10th, were there other dates that you're aware of that items were recovered by troopers that you supervised?
Yes.
And if you recall, what were those dates?
The dates were January 29th, February 11th, and February 18th.
Were there items recovered on February 8th as well?
Yes.
Now, as far as
He's like, you forgot a day. Correct.
your direction or having, let me first start with you. So on the dates that you were there, February 3rd, 4th, and 10th, were you alone on those dates? Were there other troopers with you when you were there?
On the 4th, I was alone as far as state police personnel. There were other Canton law enforcement representatives at the scene with me as I collected that one item. On the other days, I was accompanied by other troopers.
And as far as you know, obviously not being present, but from your supervision of these troopers, were there other occasions where individuals were at 34 Fairview Road? Were they alone or were they with a group of troopers? Objection.
Sustained.
Yeah, like how would he know that? Obviously, he wouldn't know that.
Now, as far as the items that were recovered when you were there on February 3rd, February 4th, and February 10th, did you have occasion to bring those items with you to court today?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
All right, so this is when they kind of go through them. We don't need to see them with our own eyes. You can watch that back if you want to. Eventually, we do get to the interview with Higgins, which I want to talk about. But first, a couple questions. Breezy. Peter, do you find it interesting that Yuri is suddenly specifying that the Sally port was heated just 2 days after Lally suggested the hair remained intact due to being frozen and then thawed out? So I think that there's a way you can read this, that they were frozen there. That's how they made it on the tow truck and driving all those miles. And then eventually when it thawed out, it just stuck there because the car wasn't being moved around anymore once it thawed out. I don't know. I don't put a lot of weight on that hair. Green Wave. Is it more common for the objections to be sustained during cross versus direct? If so, is it because the overall nature of leading questions? So I don't know if I would say it's more likely one or the other, but cross, definitely defense lawyers, when they cross, they push the line a lot more than prosecutors do when they're directing witnesses. But I feel like a lot of mistakes like accidentally direct or leading witnesses or not having proper foundation, there's a lot of objections sustained on direct too. So I guess I would say probably more during cross, but I don't know. Anna, if the Commonwealth withdrew the case now before resting, could they refile against Karen Reed when they had a stronger jury, or would that be double jeopardy? Be double jeopardy. Yeah, they can't dismiss the case now without prejudice and then try again with a different jury. They can't do that. Ranger fan, I want to know 2 things. What was in the note passed to the brother today, and why wasn't any of the glass/tailgate found under his body? I don't know the answer to either of these questions, right? It's like unanswerable questions. Moselle, Jackson confirmed to local news today that Proctor is testifying and the Commonwealth is calling him. I might be on my cruise. I'll need your recaps. Don't worry. There's not a lot of guarantees in life, but if I'm alive, I'll be recapping and breaking down Michael Proctor's testimony. Tracy, or by stopping by they gave themselves an alibi. I don't know how they would get an alibi later from stopping. I'm not sure. Melanie, a month later, they find shards of glass or glass shards. Yeah. I honestly, that's hard for me to believe that they just keep going, finding these big red pieces of plastic when they had leaf blowers and they had rakes and they had shovels and they had all this stuff. Yet they didn't find the plastic or glass for so many days. And if stuff is melting, right? Are we supposed to believe none of the Alberts are walking in and out of their house? Like they wouldn't notice a piece of red plastic and either like inadvertently throw it away because they thought there's some trash in their yard, or call the cops and be like, hey, the Alberts called. They reported that as the snow melted, they saw this in their yard. We went and picked it up from their yard. None of that. I don't know. That's weird to me. All right, let's listen to him talk about the interview with Higgins, amongst other people.
Storing items log into evidence as they relate to this case.
Whoops.
And,
One night.
Your Honor, with court's permission, may the sergeant open the box. The next video is on January 29th, sometime after midnight. The video immediately preceding that, again, would have been Mr. Camerano arriving and picking up his daughter from One Meadows Avenue sometime around 11:30 p.m., correct?
That's correct.
Those videos were both present, correct?
That's correct.
If I could bring you back to February 3rd, 2022. On that date, did you have occasion to meet with a gentleman by the name of Brian Higgins?
Yes, I did.
And when you met with Mr. Higgins, who, if anyone from your office, was with you when you met?
Trooper Mike Proctor was from my office present during that interview.
And during the course of that interview, what, if any, documentation did Mr. Higgins provide you with?
Mr. Higgins provided me with a printout of a Celebrate extraction containing conversations via text message between him and Mr. John O'Keefe and between him and the defendant. He also provided a digital copy of the same extraction on a CD.
Now, what, if anything, did you advise Mr. Higgins of at that time as far as Mr. O'Keefe's phone and the defendant's phone?
I advised Mr. Higgins that we were in possession of both of those devices and would have the extraction and accurate documentation of those conversations.
I actually like that. So that was a good point by the Commonwealth to say, we told, now is it true? Who knows? Of course, judging credibility of witnesses is all part of it. But assuming it's true, I like the testimony that they're like, hey, we have all the information from Karen Reed and John O'Keefe's phone. So don't be giving us any edited texts. Don't be screenshotting stuff that's edited because we'll be able to tell. Which again, legitimizes stuff that the defense definitely wants us to think that could be edited. Screenshots could be edited. Why not just let them download your phone? We've heard that argument with multiple witnesses. So I like how they combated that a little bit here. Sue, I've heard that that might be what it is, but I don't know yet. So we'll have to see.
And did he seem to understand that when you told him?
Yes, he understood it.
Objection.
Sustain.
Move to strike.
Strike that, folks.
Now, also on February 3rd, at some point, did you have occasion to go inside of 34 Fairview Road?
Yes, I did.
And who, if anyone, did you interview inside of 34 Fairview Road on that day?
I interviewed Mrs. Albert.
That would be, just for the record, Nicole Albert, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who, if anyone, was present with you during that interview with Nicole Albert?
It was Trooper Mike Proctor was present with me.
Anybody else from the Albert family present in the home or present during the course of that interview?
Mr. Brian Albert was also present. I don't know who else exactly was present in the home. I just know that those two residents were in the room with us.
And where was Brian Albert at the time that you conducted the interview with Nicole Albert?
In the room with us, seated next to her.
Now, with reference to, I'm going to ask you just a little bit about sort of the interview process as far as the interviews that you conducted in this case.
Yes.
If you could describe for the jury, starting with sort of how many people from your unit are present for a given interview and how those interviews are conducted.
We conduct interviews always in pairs. I think I mentioned it yesterday. Typically, during a regular investigation into a homicide or any death investigation, we pair up our troopers with a local detective. In this instance, since Canton had recused themselves from interview portion of the investigation, they were not going to
They've recused themselves from the interview portion of the investigation only. Jackson hits on that later.
provide manpower for those interviews to be conducted. Thus, we had to utilize only troopers from our office in order to conduct those interviews.
It's typically, obviously not perfect, but as far as the interviews that you were present for, about how long a period of time, generally speaking, were the interviews that you conducted in this case?
From my experience, I have learned that to fully communicate a course of recollection of events that an individual observes, experiences, or is aware of, and understand every detail of that experience, it would take approximately 45 minutes at a minimum to conduct a full interview with a witness in detail.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to June 9th of 2022. On that day, at some point, did you have occasion to meet with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And at some point during that meeting, did you have conversation with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And was that conversation, or these portions of it, memorialized in any way?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
All right, so this is where we hear from.
I'm going to read this.
So I'm going to slow it
Does that
down.
contain an audio recording, to the best of your knowledge? Does that contain an audio recording of a
It was hard
portion
for
of?
me to even understand.
Play this again. Please be
In real time, this was hard for me to understand, so we're going to play it. You guys can tell me what you think it said, how effective you think it was, but we're going to listen to it together. I'm going to slow it down.
mindful of the defendant with reasonable relief. The defendant is or any intelligence aid. Do you want to turn off the air conditioner?
Okay, you're aware he was beaten up by Brian in Colorado. We're all in on the same joke, right? My tail is correct and John was pulverized.
To me, what I could make out is we're all in on the same joke, right? My taillight is cracked and John is pulverized. That's what I hear. You guys let me know what you hear. And yeah, it's the only part that was recorded that's been played so far. I don't know if there's more. People are saying it's good for the defense. Okay. Because the taillight's cracked and not shattered or smashed and stuff like that. I get it. yeah, a portion of the interview is 15 seconds. I get it. We can pick it apart. We can absolutely pick it apart. I think the words themselves, taken literally by a jury, could also shed some negative light on the defense, right? That even she's putting it together in her mind that she hit John, but it definitely doesn't sound like an admission. It definitely doesn't sound like something she wanted to do. Definitely doesn't sound like something she intended to do for second-degree murder. Maybe they're coercing her. Maybe they're giving her all these things that make it point out to make it look like it was her. But I think it was a good spot to slide this in if you're the Commonwealth at the end of Yuri's direct for any jurors that may be with you to hear something that makes it sound kind of like an admission, even though it's not really a full admission. All right, let's keep listening.
Okay. Sergeant, on hearing that statement from the defendant, what was your reaction?
Objection. Sustained.
On hearing that statement, what, if anything, did you do?
I advised the defendant not to further speak.
Objection. I'll allow that.
I mean, that's BS. What, he gave her legal advice? I advised her not to further speak. Do you believe that that's what this officer did? I mean, that, so there's a question on here from Michael. Have you seen anything from Yuri so far that shows he's part of the cover-up? Part of the cover-up, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to get there so far. We'll see after the defense presents their evidence, but this guy definitely is pressing. This guy definitely wants to convict Karen Read. This guy definitely wants to make the investigation seem better than it was, and like they've got the right girl over there, because some of the stuff he said, medically speaking, and about the investigation and making certain things seem normal that are absolutely not normal, and saying like, oh, he was looking out for her, telling her not to speak anymore. I'm not going to get details. And then he literally says a question that he asked her for details. Like, this guy definitely is the type of cop we've seen in a lot of investigations that a bit of confirmation bias. I think he wanted to make sure that she was going to be the right one, even if she wasn't the right one, if you get what I'm saying. Okay. Then he said he and Proctor voluntarily gave their DNA. It was kind of a random time to slip this in right at the end of direct. Then we get to the beginning of cross, and he talks about how Proctor did the warrants for the Ring doorbell cams, but they basically said they got everything they should need. And there was kind of an interesting discussion between Jackson and him kind of to start cross about what information was in the Ring doorbell discovery.
Thank you. Does this refresh your recollection as to the items received from the Ring Corporation?
That is the first time I saw that document, so it does not refresh my recollection. I simply read it.
So do you have a recollection as you sit here that in fact during the course of your investigation, the three items that you received from the Ring Corporation were the account information, the video recordings, and quote, activity logs associated with the video recordings, all times displayed in UTC?
To the extent of its availability, as it says in that document.
Okay. The long and short of it is, during the entire course of your investigation, you never revealed that investigation never revealed any evidence whatsoever that my client ever even accessed the account information for the Ring account associated with this search warrant, correct?
Nothing provided by Ring proved or suggested or proved any evidence of that type of activity, no.
Trooper Proctor, you were notified.
I'm not Trooper Proctor.
I'm sorry. No, you're not.
I thought that was kind of a funny exchange. So basically, they got a bunch of information from Ring where you'd be able to tell if people were deleting things and stuff's missing. We don't know if Proctor deleted stuff. If they had evidence that Karen Read deleted stuff, I assume we'd get that. Just kind of some weird stuff going on with Ring. But I thought it was hilarious that he says Trooper Proctor. He's like, I'm not Trooper Proctor. And Jackson's like, no, you're not. The defense is absolutely baiting and trying to push the Commonwealth to call Trooper Proctor. I think that can work out well for them too, because they'll really be able to hammer him on cross. And we'll see how scared the Commonwealth is when he's on direct. How far do they push? How much do they try to get out of him? How much do they try to, Eminem him? And I know everything you're going to say against me. And they try to, ease the blow of what that's going to be like.
Sergeant Buchanan.
Sergeant Buchanan.
How do I say it?
Buchanan.
I'll get that shot.
It's fine.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
If I screwed up again, please. On January 29th, you were notified about a Boston police officer found gravely injured outside the home of 34 Fairview at about 6:40 in the morning. Was that your testimony?
That is not.
What time were you notified?
I was not notified it was a Boston police officer.
So you didn't have that information upon the first notification?
I did not.
Okay, what information did you have?
There was a male party.
Right off the jump, you could tell this guy is going to be precise, which is good and it's important, but it can also make you look like a jerk. So you got to be careful. I think some jurors, like when I listened, I was like, okay, he's trying to be precise, but I was also like, you could just say, I didn't know it was a Boston police officer, but he said, that's not correct. And he's kind of trying to be tricky. Another party says, that's a compound question. Which one do you want me to ask? Like he says that type of stuff to Jackson. To me, I don't know. That's mid. Asia said recording of her in the police department so they could only play recording in her PD police department. So they could only play a short clip of audio because the defense objected to the video on 403. Okay. Yeah. So this is stuff that happened outside of trial. But keeping us update on kind of why stuff happened the way it is. And the judge made that decision and that's how it comes out in front of the jury. And the jury will probably have similar questions to what we have as we watch. All right, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here to when they talk about the fact that did he initially think that this guy, I think, was in a fight is the problem, is this part? Let's hear this part.
At any point on January 29th?
No, I did not.
Did Trooper Proctor, at your direction or on his own, ever respond to 34 Fairview Road at any time on January 29th?
No, he did not.
Based on your initial investigation, and I'm talking about going way back, Sergeant, on your initial investigation, by 10 or 10:30 in the morning, 10:40 in the morning, it was your belief that Mr. O'Keefe had been struck in the face by a person. That was your initial understanding of the circumstances surrounding the investigation, correct?
My initial understanding was that the defendant stated that she hit him. We did not know them.
Sergeant, you hadn't even met my client at that point. You hadn't interviewed a single witness by 10:41 in the morning, correct? Not one witness.
That's not correct. We had already interviewed the first responders.
Okay, when I say witness, I'm talking about civilian witnesses. So at 10:41, you hadn't interviewed a person at 34 Fairview or civilians associated with this incident, correct?
At that point, no civilians have been interviewed, no.
But at 10:41, Sergeant, you contacted Good Samaritan Hospital to inform them that, quote, Mr. O'Keefe was struck in the face with a cocktail glass, end quote, correct?
I do not recall contacting Good Samaritan Hospital.
Here's where it misses, right? So his big beef here is I didn't contact Good Samaritan Hospital. What it sounds like is I never said he got hit in the face with the glass. I never said anybody punched him in the face. Nothing like that. I thought Karen Reed hit him with her car. That's what it sounds like he's trying to say because that's what he wants the jury to think. And it almost feels like he's trying to mislead the jury. That's going to become important later when Jackson makes a different allegation against this witness and Lally. But let's kind of hear how this develops, okay? Because he says, I don't remember ever talking to Good Samaritan Hospital.
Yes.
If you would,
I'm going to skip through just him reading his statement.
having reviewed this, do you
So before we get to his statement to the hospital, a lot of people are saying this. Brittany said, she said, you're aware that Brian and Colin beat up John, right? We're all in on the same joke, right? My taillight is broke and John is pulverized. Sean said the same thing, that she's basically saying I only have a little bit of damage and he's pulverized. So we're in on the same joke, meaning clearly something else happened to him other than me hitting him. You missed the first part of Karen's recording. Okay, so I just said what I could hear, right? And if you guys heard it as she's saying, this is a joke, there's no way my car could have done it to him, I agree with you. I think that's great for the defense. If somebody heard my taillight's cracked and John's pulverized as I must have hit him with my car, then I think it's bad for the defense, right? And it's all going to depend on how the jury hears and views the evidence. I agree. If we're sitting there talking and you give me this context, I think it's going to be a discussion point. But from my perspective, Commonwealth doesn't have a lot. I hit him. Did I hit him? That little clip. And if it turns out that there's a part where she does say, this is all a big joke, we all know the Alberts beat him up, and they left that out and just played this 15 minutes, it's over. Commonwealth loses. If they try to mislead a jury by pulling 15 seconds out of context that bad, then the jury loses. But if they never get that other context, I think it can be interpreted multiple ways. All right, so did he talk to Good Samaritan Hospital? Did he think that John O'Keefe got hit in the face with a cocktail glass or by a person?
Does this refresh your recollection that you contacted Good Samaritan Hospital and gave them an assessment, at least based on your investigation at that time?
That is not true.
What did you say to Good Samaritan Hospital?
I never spoke to Good Samaritan Hospital. That document is for the medical examiner's office.
I'm not asking you where the document is from. I'm asking you if the document says Trooper Yuri Buchanan called back at 10:41 stating the case is now being treated as a suspicion.
The objection sustained.
Did you call back to Good Samaritan Hospital and say that the investigation was being treated as a suspicious due to due to a domestic situation. Did you say that?
I never spoke to Good Samaritan Hospital.
Did you say that there's a possibility that D was struck in the face with a cocktail glass?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you ever contact anybody at any medical facility and indicate that the investigation was being treated as a suspicious, in quotation marks, because the victim appeared to have been struck in the face by a cocktail glass?
Objection.
Allow that. Did you ever say that?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, I did say that to the medical examiner's operations desk.
Okay, so when I was asking you if you ever sent it to Sam, you said, no, that's not true. That's never happened. You were correcting me on the fact that it happened at the medical examiner's office, not this.
I responded and answered your question honestly, yes.
Okay, so honestly, you did, in fact, at 10:41 a.m.
So Kelly said this, and that was the big distinction. He talked to the medical examiner, not the hospital. And to me, it's like the important part, it's important to be precise. So I get it. What I would have said is, I think the true response would have been, I think I told that to the medical examiner, because the point of the question is, did you say he got hit in the face? And I think a jury that hears this might be like, oh, this guy, oh, okay. All right. So this guy's being tricky here. This guy's being tricky. And I don't think anybody really likes that. Where are we? We're at 147. I'm going to go back real quick because everybody says go back, listen again. So let's go back. Let's listen one more time to the recording. See if we can hear Brian Albert and Colin Albert beat him up, which would be really stupid for the Commonwealth to play in their case in chief. But let's see.
My tailings were we're all in on the same joke, right? Okay, you're aware he was beaten up by Brian and Colin Albert.
Oh, you're right. It is there.
I
I totally missed
we're all
it
in on the
5
same
times
joke,
after
right?
this. You're aware he
My
was beaten up by
tailings
Brian
were
and Colin Albert. Woof. You guys like have ears like what is it? What's something that has good ears? I don't even know. Wow. Why would they play that? I totally missed that the first time I heard it. Let's listen to it one more time. Just make sure I'm not having confirmation bias.
Okay, you're aware he was beaten up by Brian and Colin Albert. We're all in on the same joke, right? My tailings cracked and John was pulverized.
All right. I stand corrected. Wow. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get what they're doing, but that's not good for them. I mean, that's literally that's been her story. So to me, when you have defense lawyers like this sometimes in their nice suits with their hair slicked back, and I don't mean any offense by that. People can say the same thing about me when I'm in the courtroom, but sometimes you can think, oh, these slick talking lawyers, especially, you got one from California and this is Boston. The jury sometimes can be like, well, I don't know if I believe what they're saying. Maybe they came up with this and concocted this whole story for Karen Read. It's like, well, Karen Read said this from the very jump, and that's what that proved. Ooh, that's interesting. That is interesting. First time I listened, I could not make out what she said in the beginning. Hopefully the jury can.
Operations desk.
We're back to the medical examiner discussion.
Okay, so when I was asking you if you ever sent it to Good Sam, you said, no, that's not true. That's never happened. You were correcting me on the fact that it happened at the medical examiner's office, not at Good Sam.
I responded and answered your question honestly, yes.
Okay, so honestly, you did, in fact, at 10:41 a.m. indicate to another professional involved in the investigation that the circumstance was being treated as a physical assault at that point, correct?
I communicated our suspicions to the medical examiner's office.
And that was at 10:41 or thereabouts in the morning, correct?
That's correct.
Your initial investigation during those obviously critical hours, the beginning hours, led you to believe that there was at least a good possibility. You indicated that you made a phone call, that it was a physical altercation that led to John O'Keefe's death, correct?
That's correct, yes.
What steps did you take, sir, in those moments, to determine whether someone in the house at 34 Fairview may have been involved in that physical altercation that you suspected at the time?
As investigations develop, we
He didn't answer the question, as you can just tell, but we're going to react to this as soon as he finishes his answer.
Followed the evidence and statements made. The steps I took was Trooper Proctor and I proceeded to an eyewitness who was also present at the scene when the victim was discovered and interviewed Ms. McCabe.
I thought it was dragging.
And
We got to kick
prior to that, prior to interviewing Ms. McCabe, by the way, that was at Ms. McCabe's home, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Even though you believe that there may have been a physical altercation, you didn't ask anybody to come down to the station. Is that right? Any of the witnesses?
That's correct.
And you did not seek to actually go to the physical location of 34 Fairview in those next few hours,
That's correct.
or the next few days, correct?
Not myself, no.
As a matter of fact, Trooper Proctor did not either, did he?
No, he did not.
You didn't secure the interior of the house as a potential crime scene. You certainly know.
So again, this is why this is important. He thought it was domestic violence. Somebody hit him in the face. Somebody hit him with a cocktail glass, whatever it may be. And he ends up in the front lawn. Don't you think you'd want to talk to the people inside the house? Don't you think you'd want to talk to people that could have committed this domestic violence? It could have been Karen Reed from inside the house. It could have been anybody that was inside the house that night. Secure it, search it, get a warrant. They did none of that. Yes, this was part of it, stars always. The jury will get to hear it in deliberations if they want to. Somebody asked this question as well, but I can't find it. Somebody asked, does the jury get to take this stuff back with them? And the answer is yes. Yes, they do.
How to do that, right?
That's a compound question. Do you want me to answer whether I did it or whether I know how to do it?
Well, I'll ask the question.
That's a compound question. Do you want to know if I know how to do it or if I did it in this case?
If you can answer it, please answer it.
Okay.
Can you answer that question?
I can answer that question.
Why don't you answer both of them then?
First portion is we did not secure the home as a crime scene. And the second portion, yes, I do know how to do that.
And you didn't, as a Massachusetts State Police official, you didn't secure the outside as a crime scene either, did you?
I did not know.
To your knowledge, nobody else from Massachusetts State Police ever did either, did they?
Yes, they did.
How was that done and when?
When members of our office and the CERT team responded to that location and secured the front yard grass area and processed it.
That was at 5:45, 6 o'clock that night, on the 29th?
I believe it was earlier, but I was not present, so I can't testify to the time.
So you don't know personally what they did to quote unquote secure or not secure the crime scene. You know they searched it, but in terms of securing it as a crime scene, you don't have personal knowledge to
I was not present.
that. You never took any photos of the interior of the house, correct?
I did not know.
You never caused CSSS to go inside the house and process that house as a potential crime scene, correct?
I did not know.
No forensic criminalist at your direction ever went into 34 Fairview.
No, they did not.
And the people that you interviewed on January 29th, you already mentioned Ms. McCabe. The other people were her husband, Matt McCabe, correct?
That's correct.
And her brother-in-law, Brian Albert. Is that right?
That is correct.
And all three of them were interviewed where?
They were interviewed at the McCabe residence.
Now, yesterday when you testified, did you indicate that Brian Albert was not present in the home when you interviewed Matt McCabe and Jennifer McCabe?
They were
An inconsistency many of us brought up, many of you remembered and brought up and put the clips together.
not, he was not present in the dining room when we were interviewing each individual separately.
So if all
Maybe Yuri did too, because he clearly said Brian came, after Jen McCabe's interview, but now it's, well, he wasn't in the same room.
three of them testified that he arrived before you arrived, they would all be wrong.
I did not see him in the home when we arrived, no.
I want to switch gears real quick to,
All right. As he switches gears, we're going to summarize part of it. He said he did leave the items out to dry in a secure area, but the troopers had access to it because Jackson was like, well, obviously you didn't have them the whole time if you took them out of the bags and laid them out. He doesn't know who bagged the stuff after it dried. A couple of them have Proctor's name written on it. He said he doesn't recognize Proctor's writing, but it does say Proctor was the one that bagged them up. So, I think we're very clear Proctor was in control of these items. And if he wanted to do something, he could have, and Yuri would not have seen it. So is Yuri involved? I don't know. At this point, I think the jury could believe that there was some kind of cover up, but Yuri maybe was not involved in it. And Kevin I think you've asked me this a couple times. Are you getting closer to believing a cover up? I'll tell you what I'm getting further down the road on is at this point, and I know there's still more evidence to come, it would be incredibly hard for me to vote guilty on this case. Now, will we still get a medical examiner or coroner, accident reconstructionist that I do think could produce enough evidence to, help us get there? We are so far away from the state meeting its burden that I do not see. And the judge said today that the case is going to be done by the end of June. If this is what they did the first 21 days, and we know the defense has 4 or 5 days, what does that leave them? 2 more weeks? 10 days-ish? I don't see how they overcome it, to be honest. I find it really hard to believe that they're going to prove this case beyond reasonable doubt. All right. And let's see what else we got. The bags, one of them was labeled that the sweatshirt and the shirt were in there, and one of them just had the shirt. So which is it? Then we get into something I was interested in is this guy's the supervisor, and he knows that they have to work the case because of the conflict of interest. So the defense gets a chance to dig in on that conflict of interest. By the way, if you guys haven't yet, go ahead and hit that like button. 12,000 people here. We're still going. We've got at least 25 more minutes. We're going to go over an hour today, just a little bit. And I'm going to get to as many of your questions as I can. So let's hear him talk about conflict of interest.
Yes.
And Chief Berkowitz indicated that as he was driving by, he saw it from Celeste,
Yes.
and stopped his car and then started making phone calls.
I believe that's what he indicated to the caller. Yes.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about why he was driving by the location in the first place?
Absolutely not.
Okay, you knew at that point that the Canton Police Department had been recused because of at least an appearance or potential for conflict of interest, correct?
I knew they recused themselves due to only in respect to interviews. They didn't want to conduct interviews with us side by side.
If there's conflict of interest,
Just for the interviews, which again, this is not the only situation conflicts of interest come up, right? Everybody, lots of people in their everyday lives have conflicts of interest pop up. And it's not like you're only conflicted to do one thing, not another. Like a judge would only be conflicted on cases if my brother was a judge and I showed up and it's like, well, judge, you're only going to be conflicted off of criminal cases I handle, not civil cases I handle. It's like, that's not how it works. Or you're only going to be conflicted off of the pretrial motions. You're not going to be conflicted off the trial, or vice versa. It's not how it works. If you're conflicted, you're conflicted. You can't do it. And they try to have this like mixed conflict of interest. And I think most jurors' common sense would show that's not how conflicts of interest work.
Sergeant, or department, conducting the interviews is just one aspect of an investigation, correct?
I'm not going to speak to the conflict of interest, but yes, conducting an interview is just one aspect of the investigation. Yes.
So is it your testimony that your understanding was they couldn't conduct interviews, but they could collect evidence, store evidence, write search warrants, get returns on search warrants, execute search warrants, conduct searches? They could do all that and not conduct interviews?
My understanding was they were recusing themselves from conducting interviews. They still allowed us to use their facilities. We utilized their conference room to conduct interviews. There was evidence being stored at their Sally Port, being the vehicle. So that was my understanding.
Isn't it true that you knew that the entirety of the Canton Police Department had recused itself because of a familiarity between one of their members, Kevin Albert, and the Albert family, on whose lawn John O'Keefe was found? That was the conflict, correct?
I knew that was the connection between them. Yes.
And you understood, sir, that that agency was to have nothing, from an investigative standpoint, nothing to do with this investigation, correct?
They were not conducting the investigation, no.
But Trooper Proctor and you supervising him, y'all were conducting the investigation, right?
Our office was conducting the investigation.
So did you find it unusual or suspicious in any way that the chief of police for the conflicted Canton PD was the person driving by 34 Fairview looking for evidence?
Objection.
I find it suspicious. And that's the point of a good defense attorney's questions. A good cross-examination question makes the jury think, makes them suspicious, makes them listen to what you're saying. Because to me, that's very suspicious. What about to you guys? Let me know in the comments. Is that suspicious to you?
Can you answer that question, Sergeant?
He would have to repeat it. There's just so much I can't.
It was a little wording. I'll try it again. Did you find that suspicious?
Which part? You have to repeat the whole thing.
That Chief Berkowitz from the conflicted Canton PD was at 34 Fairview looking for evidence?
The way you posed the question, I did not find it suspicious at all. He's the chief of the police in the town where he works, and he's driving down the street. I mean, that's not suspicious.
With a
We cannot have a conflict of interest? That doesn't make any sense.
conflict of interest on the very case that he's driving by.
Objection.
Sustained.
You certainly knew, as a supervisor over the case officer, that any involvement by Canton Police Department, given the fact that there's a potential conflict, any involvement by them could compromise your otherwise clean investigation. You knew that, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Did Chief Berkowitz disclose to you that morning on February 4th that he had been communicating with Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, two witnesses, on your case that morning?
Objection.
Sustained.
If you knew information about communication between and among Canton PD and your witnesses, you would find that inappropriate, would you not?
Objection.
Sustained.
You returned to the scene on February 10th, is that right? To conduct another search, you said.
I was present on the 10th, yes.
All right. No, there's a little bit more here.
Who dispatched you back to, or did anybody dispatch you back to that location on February 10th? How'd you end up there is a better way to ask it.
February 10th, just like previous days, we made plans to go to the location in the morning and the afternoon, drive by. I was on my way to work and to home. So I traveled that route on purpose. And as evidence revealed itself due to the natural melting of the snow, we would stop and collect the visible evidence.
Do you believe at this point, sir, that whatever you might collect at the scene,
If you're going to do that, fine, but just like document it normally or take people over there, every day at 12 o'clock, we're going to go there officially and look. We're going to document it. We're going to map it out on the GPS. They don't do any of that. And Reese's mom, I agree with you. I think that doesn't have to be a cover up for cops to try to force stuff, which happens in lots of cases, unfortunately.
correct?
Anything we collected that had evidentiary value or presented itself as somehow related to the crime or the incident would be collected.
And it would be important to the investigation, right? You treat it as important.
It is a point, yes.
So my question is, especially as it relates to the February 10th search, where there were multiple items found, did you seek to have CSSS come out and actually either mark with GPS coordinates or measure with cross coordinates exactly where each item of evidence was found?
We did not do that. We had collected so much evidence already, and so much has been documented at that point that we did not contact crime scene services to come back out and photograph more shards of glass and plastic. We simply collected it for processing.
So the location of each one of those items was not of that great importance to you, at least at that time?
It was of great importance as to the fact that it was located in the vicinity where the victim was found and in the vicinity of other items located of the same characteristic, shape, size, and color.
So that's my question, sir. What does the city mean?
In the area.
Okay, what does area mean?
It's a location, specific location.
Okay, are we talking about
What Jackson's pointing out here is that's the point of the system you guys have. And we've seen that they have it. We've seen that the other specialized officers that do the search use it that way. You guys aren't those officers. Why didn't you call them to come back and do it? That's why they went through all those dates when that officer was on the stand, when they were doing the shoulder to shoulder, all the proper tools, not just kind of driving by on your way home from work. That's the point. There's an official, appropriate way that things have to be done. And when you don't do them that way, you throw shade on the whole process.
we do this all day, I guess. Are we talking about an area of 5 feet or an area of 50 feet?
Based on where the items were recovered, we're talking about an area approximately of 30 square feet between the roadway into the grass. It's the
We saw photographs, Sergeant, of items that were butted up against a fire hydrant in one instance, correct? Yes.
That's correct. Yes,
A drinking straw that's out in the road, correct?
that's correct.
Another shard of glass that's in the grass, closer to the flagpole, correct?
Correct.
A hat that's under the snow, adjacent to the left side of the flagpole, correct? I'm sorry, it wasn't. It was closer to the electrical box, wasn't it?
No, the pictures documented where the hat was. It was to the right of the flagpole.
So these shards of glass, the point I'm asking is, did you seek to use basic cross coordinates, measurements from something that you know is a known object, like for instance, I don't know, a flagpole or a fire hydrant? 27 inches to the north and a foot and a half to the south are those two known points. That would give you a cross coordinate, correct?
It would document the exact location, correct?
And you did not do that with any of these items, correct?
The items that were not photographed were not also GPS located, but they were within the same vicinity of where the other items were collected.
But again, now we're back to the same question. Your word for vicinity might be different than my word for vicinity, right?
Objection.
Sustain.
But he's right. And that's the whole point and reason why we need to do it the right way. Okay, we're going to slow it down again because a bunch of you had questions about this. And we're going to watch it on normal speed and see if it looks like Karen Reed does, in fact, hit John O'Keefe's car, which this officer already testified he didn't. I saw some people in the chat. Some people are saying it's so obvious she did hit it. It looks like a tap. All sorts of ways to view this, but the jury is going to trust their own eyes, their own ears. So let's see what happened when we watch it here together.
Go ahead and enlarge the rear area of the truck. And I'm going to ask you to pay special attention to the back wheel and any movement that you may or may not see. Okay, pause it. Okay, in about the next 3 seconds, Sergeant, I'm asking you to pay special attention to the wheel. Go ahead. We can have the lights on.
I mean, it very clearly hits it. So now it starts to feel a little bit like she definitely hit it there. Was there any red taillight or anything on the ground? I don't know. But if she busted her taillight and her bumper here, or even cracked it or whatever, and we don't think she cracked it on John O'Keefe, then you have to start believing the cover up. And I think that's what the defense understood, and why, you know, some people like myself were like, man, you're really kind of creating a burden for yourself saying this big cover up happened. Do you know that cover up happened? Because now you kind of have to prove it. I think the defense knew at some point people were going to get to the point where it's like, yeesh, really looks like she hit John O'Keefe's car there. Okay, well then how in the world did the taillights end up on Fairview? And they provided an answer for it. And I assume they're going to provide evidence for it in their case in chief. But she definitely, by my eye, hits John O'Keefe's car, right? What do you guys think? I mean, you could say it's just a minor tap, like I think somebody said, which I get it. I get that, you know, a minor tap, you know, maybe didn't even crack the tail light, whatever it may be. But I think you have to believe that she hit John O'Keefe's car here, right? I mean, am I crazy? You guys tell me. You guys like telling me I'm crazy. I think that's it, but I'll play a little bit more.
And you can take that down. Sergeant, were you able to see that video? I know it's not the clearest thing in the world, but were you able to see that video okay?
Yes.
What did you notice about the rear wheel of the Traverse?
Based on the motion in the shot with the snow falling, it appears that there is movement, but the video speaks for itself.
What would you assess based on?
He throws out so many legal terms. The video speaks for itself. That's a compound question. You know, it's interesting how he answers these questions. Ellie said she could have hit the bumper of the car and hit John before. Yeah, that's possible too. I mean, that's wild, but it's possible. It doesn't seem like the Commonwealth is admitting that. All right, let me hit some questions here before we get to the rest. Liz A, did anyone else notice that the sole of the sneaker in the pic from the scene was black and the sole of the sneaker from the evidence bag in court was white? So yeah, a bunch of people were sending me that. It's hard because there's blurry pictures and the snow all over, but it definitely looks like the sole is black in one and the sole is white in another. It's obviously the ones he was wearing in the video before all this happened, it was white, and the one in court was white. But the one that they gathered from Fairview maybe had a black sole. Here's what I'm thinking. A black sole. That's an interesting concept when talking about this case. But I think if it's a big deal, the defense is going to bring it up, just like the reverse video, which we're going to get to. If it's a big deal, the defense is going to bring it up, and they need to tell us why it's a big deal because they know this case. Sandy, does there seem to be an excess amount of taillight plastic found on the property compared to what is still on her vehicle? Well, that's probably why we have heard an inordinate amount of 17 small pieces measuring at this. So that my guess is it probably does match up with how many pieces they found to what they put together. Whether or not the cops broke it and planted it, I don't know. But I don't think that we've got, you know, like, I think what you're saying is we got like 3 lights worth of practice here of plastic here. How does it only fit on over 1 light? Lisa, is this a way for the state to put Proctor on the stand without him putting him on the stand? I thought they were trying to do that with Yuri, but it seems like they are going to call him now based on reports. Pity Mom, can we talk about his change of demeanor as soon as AJ's cross started, correcting him on the pronunciation of his name when he was not correcting anyone else? I don't like him. KP said the same thing. Got here late. Have you guys talked about the different soles on the shoes? Yeah, I get it. I think it's a real thing. I don't know if they're going to point it out, but I think it's a real thing. You'd think the cops would hear each other speaking like this guy with all his smarty pants weasel words replies and realize how cringe and unlikable he is. You know, sometimes I have to talk about this with cops and spine surgeons sometimes where it's like, just relax, man. We all know you're a spine surgeon. And the best ones are the ones that are likable, normal, everyday guys or gals, but they're also brainiacs and spine surgeons. Will the defense be able to play the rest of that audio clip with KR saying Brian and Colin Albert beat him up, etc., for completeness, or is that only allowed if the judge approves third-party culpability? I think now that the Commonwealth has played it and published for the jury, it's fair game for the defense to play it as well. All right, so we'll get back to his testimony here. They talk about the Sallyport video. They talk about how it was extracted. They talk about how he got it after the trial started. There were some objections back and forth. We didn't really get to the bottom of it. After the sidebar, she does end up allowing him to ask if he talked to Lally or not. I thought it was really weird how the judge was like sustaining objections there when obviously that's fair game. You can ask that. but I think maybe he wasn't specifying in preparation for or anticipation of your testimony today. And then when he put that specification on, yes, he has talked to Lally a couple times over the last couple weeks. He showed him a few videos or a video. He's not sure if this is one because he watched some videos on his own, but we are going to get to now the video at the Sally Port. The inverted video.
Play that.
And so they're going to go through when it skips time and stuff. So you guys have some comments about that. We're definitely going to watch, how Jackson breaks this down while talking to Yuri on the stand.
20. Pause it. Do you recognize that as the video we saw yesterday?
Yes, I do.
On his own.
Very briefly, if you could move to time of day, 5:37:05. With course permission, can we play this one?
Yes.
All right, that shows the vehicle coming into the Sally Port, and we're looking at which side of the vehicle?
So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. What that video depicts is a mirror collection. Although mirrors are accurate representation of what you're seeing, it's just inverted. So that is the driver's side of the vehicle. I do not know why it is inverted, but that's the way it was presented, collected and presented from Canton Police.
Can you see it?
So do you think Yuri was prepared for that question? Because what's interesting is he never said that on direct. And Jackson's going to blow a hole through that. Here's the question about them. Yes, they can take the videos and audio back until deliberation. But he never said that on direct. But immediately it was like the first thing. Yes, it's an accurate depiction. It's a mirror. It shows the same thing. It's just flipped. No funny business going on here. Immediately, that was his response.
The timestamp or the time and date stamp on the bottom of that's in blue.
I cannot know.
Does it appear that time and date stamp, if you can't read every letter on it, that is incorrect order? In other words, that's not inverted.
I cannot read it, no.
All right, let's go and play this for a second. Who is that just got out of the car?
I do not know. I think that's the tow truck driver. He would have the only access to the vehicle. We did not touch the vehicle.
Who's that on the left?
I missed it. I was looking down at the laser pointer. I do not know. I know for a fact, I'm the gentleman that's wearing a dark olive drab State Police baseball style hat, and Trooper Mike Proctor is wearing a winter hat.
Trooper Proctor's wearing what?
A winter hat.
That was playing. I didn't realize it was playing while you were talking. Stop. Do it from that. And stop. Yesterday, when you testified, you indicated that the two individuals in this scene were you and Trooper Proctor, correct?
That is not correct. There was two individuals in the rear of the vehicle I shined my light to. That was me and Trooper Proctor.
You see Trooper Proctor?
So somebody sent me this on Instagram. It's very interesting doing this, right? It's very interesting to have all of you, 14,000 people watching this, hanging out, talking about this like we're just sitting on the couch together discussing this case. Somebody sent me the clip of his testimony about exactly this part, and it was exactly this part, and he said that this was him and Proctor. So I feel confident saying he's wrong here and Jackson is right, and he's like, that's incorrect. It's like, well, that's what you said yesterday. I found that to be very interesting.
Proctor toward the back of the rear of the vehicle there.
I can't tell because of what the head is. I just know that Trooper Proctor was wearing a black hat.
Who's the person in that in the video to the left, to the rear of the car is wearing a black hat, correct?
I can't tell. I don't want to be locked into a statement where later on you show me that it's somebody else magically. I can't testify to that.
There's no magic about this. It's your testimony. I'm just asking you what you see.
I don't see that. No.
So, let's go ahead and play it this way. Pause. Do you see the person toward the back of the vehicle walking toward the opposite side of the SUV?
I do.
What area does he appear to go into?
He appears to be going towards the rear passenger side of the vehicle, although it does not appear so because the video is inverted, a mirror image. That's where he's going.
And Sergeant Buchnick, you testified for at least a half an hour about this video yesterday, correct?
I'm sorry, it was a long day. I don't know the timing of how long I testified.
You significantly testified about this video yesterday, did you not?
I testified about this video.
And you
All
testified.
right, so here's what's about to happen here from a defense attorney, okay? So when we watch this, we're like, yeah, they didn't tell us it was flipped. We kind of all figured out it was flipped, the classic car, the number 4. They go through all that. Only one person getting out of this side, clearly the driver. We get it. What's up, Emily? I see you in the chat. Yeah, definitely prepared for this. And he screwed up the drinks yesterday, yeah, and fixed it today. So we get to a point where we didn't know why it was flipped. I don't know how important it is. As far as evidence goes, it doesn't really change anything, the fact that it was flipped. But a good defense attorney can tell the jury with his questions why he thinks it was flipped and why it makes law enforcement look bad and why it makes the prosecutor look bad, because anything that is not done the 100% correct, accurate, precise, proper protocol way, a defense attorney can make it look like or make it seem like, and sometimes it's very true, sometimes it's embellished, that this is them trying to pull one over. This is them doing a sloppy job. This is them not being precise. This is them telling you something, telling you that something is something, but it's not. And that's what happened here. And Jackson's about to go in to why he thinks they've provided a mirrored version, and to why he thinks that they told him that it's a true and accurate depiction, and why he thinks they didn't correct the record when they had the opportunity to. So he had to do it because he's the guy that's being honest with the jury. He's the guy that's being transparent with the jury, not the Commonwealth.
Testified that it was true and accurate, correct?
Correct.
You testified that it was reflective of your observations of what was happening in that Sally Port that evening, correct?
I testified that this is a accurate scene and collection of video evidence from the Sally Port.
And as that truck sits in that Sally Port, just like this, it appears from all perspectives that what we're looking at is the passenger side of the car, and that right rear taillight is right there shining in our face, correct? From this perspective.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
From this perspective, from the perspective that the jurors are looking at, from all indications, that would appear to be the right side of the truck, the passenger side of the truck, and that taillight that you can see is the right rear taillight from this perspective, correct?
The way it presents itself, yes.
And yesterday, during the entirety of your questioning by Mr. Lau, not once did you mention that this video is actually completely inverted.
I did not know.
Mr. Lau didn't ask you.
He admits not once yesterday. It was the first thing he said when they brought up this video on cross. It was the first thing he said. It's a mirrored version. I don't know why it came like that, but it's still true and accurate. He had a lot of opportunity to say that with Lally, and he never did. Why do we think that is? Jackson's going to tell us why he thinks it is.
If it was inverted, correct?
That's correct.
And if I hadn't gotten up here and begun questioning you, that would be left uncorrected, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
So what did he say? I'm the one here fighting for truth and justice, not the Commonwealth, not law enforcement. I'm the one who's setting the record straight. And if you build that credibility, it can go a long, long way as a defense attorney. There's more coming. Real Elite Squad. In your opinion, was the prosecution's presentation of the Sally Port video intentionally misleading? They never clarified it was a mirror image. I got to be honest with you. The first time I watched it, I was like, just seems kind of sloppy and stupid. Why would they do this? After watching Jackson's Cross, yes. I think he made some great points. It definitely looks like the passenger side. And by not correcting it, I have to believe they had the opportunity to correct it and they didn't. And that was their decision. Can you cover the last motion filed by the Commonwealth? I haven't seen it, so it's tough to cover that. Francis, yesterday Yuri said he had to move Karen Reed's car because Canton recused. He never said only recused for interviews. He said multiple times only refused for interviews. I know he also said that part too, but like whenever he had the chance to specify, I feel like he did. Stephanie, I have not heard what the motive would be for Brian and Colin to beat up J.O. because Colin didn't like him. And how did Karen Reed find that out? So the whole like running across his lawn, jokes together, jealousy, Higgins liked Karen, and that's Brian's friend. I don't know. I don't feel like there's a great motive there either. I agree with you. I don't feel like there's a great motive there. Kevin, Peter, do you find yourself more often agreeing or disagreeing with the judge's ruling on objections in this case? I know it's hard because she won't allow basis. So I'm usually working and listening to this on 2x speed at the same time. And when there's no reason for an objection, sometimes it's hard for me to follow what the objection is and what the purpose or reason for the ruling is. So I would say it's about 50-50, but there are some I am really struggling to find out why she's sustaining certain objections. Mandy, maybe the taillight cracked with the bump and then the glass fell out when she hit him. It's possible. Karen said, I've hit 9 deer. I can assure you that the taillight didn't shatter and scatter like they are trying to convince. Signed, Karen, not Reed. I can help out with that. Peter, just saying your recaps are so beneficial, and I personally feel they are fair and unbiased. Please don't let a few whiners deter you from calling it as you see, feel. Food for thought. No, I agree. I don't think at this point in my life anybody's going to deter me from calling it like I see it. That's just how I'm going to do it. We're going to agree on some. I'm going to be right sometimes. I'm going to be wrong sometimes. You guys will be right sometimes. You guys will be wrong sometimes. But we learn together. We watch together, and that's what makes it so cool. Let's listen to a little bit more of this discussion.
The person with the winter cap appears to walk directly to the what ultimately should be the right rear taillight of this car, correct?
That's the vicinity. Yes, that's where he is. Yeah.
Pause it. I'd like you to pay attention to the right rear of this car. And I know we're completely backward, but it's the far corner of the car. Do you see a person's head there?
It appears as if someone's still there.
And that person is located at or near what portion of the car?
In real life or as it's depicted?
Is the person in real life, near the right rear taillight of the car?
Yes.
Matter of fact, standing there, hovering around there, correct?
We don't know the distance that they are in proximity to the actual vehicle. We just know that they're behind the vehicle. That
Looks like it's pretty close, doesn't it? Sergeant?
Objection.
Sustained.
Does that look like he's in close proximity to the right rear taillight?
as I said, I can't tell how far away he is from the vehicle.
It's right there.
Jackson's trying to make a point here that if it was busted up, he would have seen it. If it was intact, he would have seen it. This is the guy that would have seen it. And again, these videos are so grainy that you could sit here, either lawyer, and I know because I've been in trials where we've both looked at the same picture and I've argued it shows one thing and the other lawyers argued it shows another. Either lawyer could sit here and tell me, oh, look, that taillight's way too white. All the red plastic has been cracked off. Or it's clearly working. I can see the light lighting up. And if it was cracked and busted like they said it was, it wouldn't be lighting up like that. And it's the same picture. Which is why, Jackson saying you try to play this video like this because these officers that are that close are the ones that the jury should believe, right? Because that's the right taillight, except that it's not because it's inverted.
Yes, sir. You can't tell that he's right next to the right rear taillight?
Objection.
Sustained.
I want you to pay attention to what that person does as soon as the other person comes out from behind that car. So you see him move. Sorry. Do you see that person move?
I saw movement in the
I
front.
think morph is the word he was looking for. Did you see that person morph like the red blue blur from Smallville days? Anybody watch Smallville? I binged that in college. So yeah, now we're going to get into, this has been clipped up. This has been edited, kind of like the short we posted, clearly edited and clipped together to make it under a minute.
Frame, yes.
Right when the other person is in eyesight of the person toward the right rear, correct?
I mean, the video speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does.
Objection, Your Honor.
The objection sustained. No commenting, Mr. Jackson. We've talked about that.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bates to back it up because there's one other issue I want you to pay attention to if you can, right at this moment or right before this moment, and that is the timestamp. You back it up maybe 10 seconds. Right about there. Don't play yet. Instead of paying attention to the individuals, I'm going to ask you, can you see, there, puts the screen on this. Can you see the timestamp at 5:37 and 37 seconds p.m.? Can you see that from where you're at?
No, I cannot.
Me neither. By the way, that's okay. Let's play for about 10 seconds. Pause it. Did you see another person just appear toward the rear end of the car?
There was a fog of some sorts. It did appear as if a person was actually there was two people back there and two people walked away, or one person walked away.
The timestamp jumped to 5:38:01. Correct?
I cannot see the timestamp, sir.
Did it appear that there was an anomaly? There's a portion of that video that was deleted. Or it's missing, not deleted, but just missing.
Objection.
Can you tell that? Does it appear that way to you, Sergeant?
No, Your Honor, I cannot tell what is happening with the video.
It's not great. He doesn't have a great answer. And when ABC's docket, if the jury's actually asking questions like this, it's not great. It's really not great. Me from Texas, I watched a crime video on a different case that the victim had pig DNA and was later found to be the dog had eaten pig ear dog treats. Could this be why they found pig DNA on John? When this came out and we did the recap that day, other people were saying this, so it's possible. I don't know. I have no idea. Not an expert on that. ZH, lawyer, how common is it for an attorney to blurt out objection without offering any justification? How does the judge know what she's ruling on? And Jay asked a very similar question. Why don't they have to give a reason when they object? Well, that's how the judge wants to do it in this case. We've talked about it on almost every video because anybody that's watching the other trial or has any experience in trial work or being in the courtroom, It's crazy. I don't get it. I don't know why. I get not having speaking objections, but at least a basis or a rule number or something like that to help the appellate court and to protect the record. But instead, I guess the judge just considers any reason they could ever possibly be objecting to something. Jody, my hubby was in a motorcycle accident recently. Oh, it's terrible. Every bone on the right side of his body was broken. His face on the right side was fractured. No dam to the lights on the car. Lights left imprint on face. No damage. Oh, okay. I get where we're going with that. That's horrible. I am sorry to hear that. And yeah, I think there'll probably be people on the jury that have some kind of an experience with a car accident or hitting their light, some form or fashion.
If you take a close look at there's a classic police car in that Sally Port, correct?
There's an antique vehicle there. Yes, yes.
If you take a close look at the trunk of that vehicle, see the word police,
Yes, I believe I can read that. Yes.
and it's backward, correct?
It is mirrored, correct.
That's a good indication that this is an inverted video, right?
It appears that way, yes.
If we were to fast forward at 5:42, another 20 seconds.
Azam, I think he did push on certain things today. It did seem like she was overly protective of this witness, of things that she let him ask to other witnesses. Like, did you talk to Lally? When did you talk to Lally last? He had to go up and get a sidebar before he could get into that. So I did think it was a little bit more than normal today. I do agree with you there. And you're not the only one.
There you go. Can you just play at this point? No. You can pause it. Pause it. You see the Southport garage came down?
Yes,
You see the number on the garage? Is
I do.
that correct?
What is correct?
Does the number appear correct? Is that how you make it for?
No, the number's in the mirror image, yes.
I just wanted to make the point. Everything in this video is completely accurate, correct?
It's not backwards, it's mirrored, reversed. You can look yourself in the mirror in the morning. You still see your own face. It's not backwards.
But my mirror image is not an accurate depiction of who I am. My actual physical appearance is who I am, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
A mirror image, Sergeant, is not an accurate video of this, is it?
Objection.
It's a mirror image by definition.
Sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
I mean, they're both kind of right there, right? The mirror of your face is your face, but it's not a perfectly accurate depiction because everything's mirrored in it. I think he made his point very well, the part we listened to where it's like, you had the opportunity to set the record straight and you didn't. So I had to come here and set the record straight. I love that. I absolutely love that. Reese's mom said what they didn't check was if the dog had John's DNA on the teeth or claws because the dog was rehomed. Reed, so if the video were not flipped, we could see the person messing with the light. Is that what's going on? No. And that's why I didn't know how important this was, because if it's not flipped, we still see the same side of the car. It's just, we all know that we're not looking at the passenger light. And maybe somebody might be confused if you don't say anything to say it's the right passenger light. It's like, if I wanted to hold up my hand, I don't know what it looks like to you. I think this is mirrored. And it looks like my left hand. And it's like, ooh, I don't have a wedding ring on. I want you to think maybe I'm not married. It's like, well, this is my right hand. So that would be tricky. So if I didn't tell you it was my right hand, then maybe you just look at it and you think no wedding ring on his left hand. It's like, oh, but it is here. So it's not an accurate depiction of my left hand, even if it may look like that. And this could be a really stupid analogy. If the way you guys are looking at me, it doesn't look like this is my left hand. But I think you get the point, is if you don't say anything and it could be misunderstood, you're allowing people to misunderstand something that is potentially very, very important. Court next week, full days Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not a half day on Thursday, but nothing on Tuesday. And this trial is going to be, or the jury will be deliberating before the end of June. And the defense, I think, is only a 4 or 5 day case. So we're getting close to the end. They've got to throw this together. They've got to finish this case up. We've got to get moving because the court says it's going to be overnight. A lot of people are asking, is she going to push the defense? No way. If anything, so here's the thing. The defense is entitled to as much time as the prosecution. Okay. Theoretically, they could ask for as much time. But when we pick trial days and how long a trial is going to go, we tell the judge how long it's going to go. So if the defense only had 4 or 5 days, she's probably going to hold them to the 4 or 5 days. So that's kind of where it goes with if she rushes them. She may say, you've got to stick to what you said, unless, of course, cross is going incredibly long. Will the jury have the transcript from the audio? Usually not, but some cases they allow it, so we'll kind of see. Can they subpoena the entire video? Yes, but if it's clipped up and they say, I don't know what happened to it, I don't know why this is how it came, and this is the entire video, sometimes it's tough for defendants to get to the bottom of that. demurred. I've never heard a judge ask the witness the question after an objection. Is that a Massachusetts thing, state law, or just her? Probably just her. And it's really just saying, no, she can answer it or I'll allow it. But what she does, instead of saying yes or overruled, she just asks the witness. Tiffany, why does John O'Keefe's family so adamantly believe Karen Read is guilty? I keep thinking something big may be coming because of that. I can't see how they do otherwise. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs. People said it looks like your right hand. It's probably because it's my right hand, which makes it a horrible analogy. But I was thinking sometimes when I have my phone on mirror mode, whatever. Okay, I got to go. I've got a call in 1 minute. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for hanging with me. Sorry I was late again. Hit that like button if you wouldn't mind, and make sure you subscribe to our page. We're pushing to 400K. So I appreciate you guys. We'll continue to talk about Karen Read next week, and hit that reminder bell. You never know what's going to come later tonight or tomorrow. I think we have another Daybell juror interview if you want to catch that. But that's all we got for today's video. Until next time, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.